All for joining us. You are in the session entitled Employee Wellbeing and Retention. My name is British Griffiths. I am a CIFPAC support staff. I'm the Equitable Supply Chain Development Manager here at Chicago Food Policy Action Council under the Good Food Purchasing Initiative team. And this is the 2024 Fall Mixer Scaling for Success Supplier Development Tools for Farms and Food Businesses. The Good Food Purchasing Initiative team and all our partners are working to make the Chicago land food system more equitable and transparent with local, sustainable, fair, humane, and nutritious foods. Our work includes shifting institutional procurement through the Good Food Purchasing Program and also uplifting our suppliers with resources and events such as this. So thank you all again for being here. And this session today will be led by Caroline and Trish from the Real Organic Project. And I will pass it over to you all.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we will start with introductions. We had put some questions in the chat. Caroline added questions. It's a small enough group, though I think that we can actually take the time to just unmute and each of us sort of answer this prompt in the chat. And I'll start. And I think just for ease of awkwardness, just call on someone after your check-in. I think all of our names come up in the chat, yeah. So I'm Trish Clark-Weiss. I'm the current certification director at the Real Organic Project. I also have been a veggie farmer for 20 years now. In Missouri, started as an urban farmer, started an urban farm and collaborated with several in St. Louis, and then have been farming rurally since 2010 and steward around 150 acres in Northeast Missouri with a collective of folks on a land project here called Sandhill Farm. My background that got me into this position was working in organic certification specifically. And I have managed many employees over the years as a farmer and through a variety of internships to hourly paid workers. Yeah, that's my intro.
I can jump in and introduce myself as well. I'm Caroline. I am the Midwest Regional Inspector with the Real Organic Project. And I'm also a farm owner and employer myself. I live in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and my partner and I are just wrapping up our 4th season. We farm 2 acres of organic veggies here. We rent land and high tunnels from Ann Arbor Township. So I'm in a similar boat to you all as well, being still a beginner farmer under that 10-year mark and thinking about scaling up and thinking about this topic of employment and how to continue to offer better employment packages and increase employee retention. So I will pass it off. Bernadette, would you like to introduce yourself?
Real quick, can people, I'm not seeing you. And I can stop sharing the slideshow long enough to do intros so those who want to be seen can be seen. Are other people able to see Caroline when she gave her intro?
All the faces are at the top of my screen.
Yeah, you guys are in. You guys are perfect.
Okay. Great. Then. Okay. Great.
My name is Bernadette. I work for Real Organic Project as a regional coordinator in California. I currently live in Sacramento and have a background in food retail and farming as well. And I'm really happy to be here. Thanks, Trish and Caroline, for hosting this great conversation. I will pass it to Carmen.
Also happy to jump in here. Hi, Carmen, just kidding. Go for it.
Yeah, I'm just I'm just running in. It's so nice outside up today, and I'm trying to get my bulbs and my tulips and my daffodils in because it's almost 80 degrees in Chicago after being 34 a couple of days ago. But I am um, by profession, I am a psychologist, a counseling psychologist. I have been retired for for 5 years now. I've always been involved with herbalism and growing. I got involved with gardening through the University of Illinois Master Gardener and the University of Illinois Small Farm Projects, and I actually have done training certification for the Department of Agriculture under the USDA FSMA program and the GAP program. I have developed a small community of backyard gardeners in my community because I am in a food desert in Harvey, Illinois, right outside of Chicago. So right now, what my main concern is trying to get them to understand what PSA rulings are and try to get them more involved in growing so that they can become parts of the uh, farmers market that is in the process of developing, and also because most of them are indigenous people that have come to the United States, but they come from agricultural backgrounds and their practices are not what we utilize in the United States. So getting them to kind of understand that what you did at home was cool, but you can't do that over here. So we're trying to get them to understand the ruling because they all are eligible for larger plots of land within the state of Illinois. So that's what I do. I make medicine out of what I grow. I got a little farmer's market on my property. I have a flower garden that I actually sell to high school students and some of the churches in my area. But I utilize my herbalism skills, and because my property grows so many municipal plants and weeds, that I try to help my community because it is an aging community and it also is one that is very sick. So to keep them out the local hospital, I'm the root lady. So they come and get stuff from me. So that's who I am and that's what I do.
Thanks, Carmen. Looks like we've had 2 more people join us. We're doing brief intros. Who you are, what where you're located, where you are in this industry, or if you're a farmer, or if you're with a nonprofit, just what your work is, and if you have employees, just a brief description of how many or what the situation is.
And feel free to
Oh,
pop
yeah.
off mute, or if you want to just put your intro in the chat, that works great as well, whatever you're feeling. We'll give it a couple more minutes here and then we can start.
How about let's pass it on to Stephanie?
Thanks, Carmen. Hi, guys. My name is Stephanie. I'm really excited to be here today. I have a lot of interest in labor standards and labor unionizing, so this is right up my alley and hoping to learn more. And while I'm not someone that is an employer myself, I do have aspirations to have my own growing site and work really closely with people that are, affected by these kind of things. So getting a good picture of the landscape and seeing what you guys have to say today, I'm really interested. So thank you guys for talking today. And I'll pass it if anyone else wants the mic. Otherwise, I'll pass the mic back.
I can hop in. My name is Alex Rodriguez. I'm here based in Chicago. And I pretty much the program I work with is the Good Food Purchasing Program. And that's pretty much just looking holistically on just institutional procurement, but how we can also identify ways to not only just obviously support local and provide nutritious food, but thinking through too more of animal rights, but also labor rights too, and just also how to be able to kind of align and tap in more and how we can protect food producers and just other workers in the food system, and exploring more just how ways to kind of look through that. So yeah, just really excited and just eager to learn too, just to kind of see.
Thanks, Alex.
Hi, I can hop in really quick. Mabel Shu here, and I'm with the CIFPAC team working on as a director of good food purchasing. But I'm also here today kind of wearing my other hat of launching a micro grocery store in the Chatham community in the south side of Chicago. So we have just hired one employee and we'll likely be hiring another, but working really closely with small farms. And I'm just excited to learn more and understand best practices and how we can support that in our business as well.
Great. Thanks. I think that's everyone here. So I'm gonna go ahead and move us along. The agenda today is because Caroline and I are here from the Real Organic Project, I'm going to take a few minutes and just give an overview of what is the Real Organic Project. We offer an add-on certification to the USDA, so I'll talk a little on that. And then specifically why we're at the intersection of employee wellness and retention is of our work around labor and labor standards. So I want to let you know what that work looks like at Real Organic. And then from those labor standards and from our certification work, which involves an application process around the labor standards and interviewing both farm owners and farm workers. Caroline will take it from there to share as an inspector who's been doing those interviews this past season, what have we learned, Caroline and our other inspectors? What are we hearing? What are the themes? What are the challenges? And yeah, looking at employee retention and then some of the positives, like what our team is learning that farmers and employers are able to offer. And then if there's time, we'll see where we're at with time, but we'd love to then just open it as a group discussion of like, what all do you see in this industry and specifically with farm labor and employment? Like, what are the challenges and where are the wins? So that's the agenda for today. And I'll start with the Real Organic Project. So the Real Organic Project really came around after a 1997 National Organic Standards Board meeting, where it was decided to continue certifying hydroponic operations. And I don't want to get too sidetracked today into hydroponics and what that means and like how, yeah, just that could be a whole, multi-day conference on its own. But that was the catalyst around a group of farmers and activists and people in this industry saying, no, to us, organic means healthy living soil. And that's the foundation of our work. And so from that, the Real Organic Project was started. And I've just listed out here some of the points of what that means, and I'll go into the certification program, but the things that we value is organic as the spirit of what was meant as organic, rather than maybe I have a little organic over here, but then we're doing things in a very contrasting system in other parts of our farm. So it's really upholding that spirit, and that means growing crops in healthy, active soil, improving the quality of the soil, seeing it as a holistic system, raising animals on pasture. We have higher standards for time on pasture, quantity of feed from pasture, stocking density requirements, and then just what sort of alterations you can do to animals, just really looking at the treatment of animals and holding a higher bar than the current organic standards. And then it's a whole system, certification. So we don't just look at, maybe the the little bit of organic you have over here, but we want to see everything that you're managing and make sure that everything is following those baseline organic standards, or at a minimum, there's not animal confinements, there's not hydroponics, GMOs or pesticides or herbicides that are prohibited being used for commercial sales anywhere on the farm. And then another big difference is the labor standards. And so Real Organic started as an add-on label. We do also have a podcast. We have a weekly newsletter. We put on an annual conference, and we have a virtual symposium. Caroline and I specifically, and Bernadette, who's in this call, we all work within the certification program. So that's really the focus of our work and of this introduction. So like I said, the main thing that ROP does, and where most of our staff and focus is on this add-on certification. And it was determined when the program began that it would be an add-on certification. And that means we are working with farms who are currently certified organic. And then we will then work with that farm to provide a second logo, the Real Organic logo and certification, saying, yes, you've met the organic standards, and now we've reviewed and inspected and can attest that you also meet these higher standards. And the process looks similar to if you're familiar with the organic certification process. You submit an application annually every year, not just your first year. You have an inspection, and then at that inspection, there's a report, and we review it internally in the office, and then you're provided with a certification that's good for a year. One difference is our inspections, because of capacity and being a young program, and because we're an add-on, we can lean on the work of the organic certifiers. We only inspect brand new farms, and then we inspect every 5 years. And those 4 in between years, you would still be receiving your USDA inspection, and you would still be applying with us and being reviewed annually, but you wouldn't be inspected. You aren't expected every year. And here's just a map. You can see we have over 1,000 farms now that are part of the Real Organic project and movement, really, to to be seen. If we can grow this movement large enough, and we can partner with enough certifiers and get enough traction to be like, hey, this is for real, and the National Organic Standards Board will need to look at and hopefully uphold higher standards. So we have labor standards. That is not part of the organic industry. The National Organic Program does not address labor. And I was an organic inspector for years, and I when I first started here and did my first inspection, it was like, oh, how do I do this? How do I ask these questions of farm workers? I mean, it's just brand new, even though I'd been in the organic industry itself for years. And yeah, it's again looking at that whole larger spirit. So we're not just looking at a few regulations, but we're looking at the land, the animals, the soil, the health, and that health and these systems also include the people doing the labor. Our standards are currently based on the regulations for the H-2A workers program, a federal program for temporary workers that are not US citizens. And so they're literally like copy and pasted. It's a brand new program, and our standards board chose to use those standards. And so currently that's what we're doing. And like I said, it's a young program. We're still learning. Our standards board meets every year. And at that meeting is the opportunity we ask for public comments. We look at farms that were withdrawn or rejected from the previous year, and we look and scrutinize our standards and see, where do we need to refine or revise things. And so labor is part of that as well. basically saying we're like always learning. We're trying to learn how to do this best and effectively in a way that supports the farmers and upholds the labor justice and labor standards that we'd like to see. And so right now, based on the H-2A program, we look at hiring, pay requirements, housing, workplace environment, employment practices, and then workers' contract and workers' rights. And I'd put in here, we won't go like deep here, but I just wanted you to be able to see what that looks like. And so I have a few slides here. It's a lot of words, but it is literally our labor standards as they are currently written. So there's the documents required, and we're still learning how to implement this. We're a young team and they're new standards. And so, like even just this first standard, it used to be, well, how do we provide the workers' right document? And right now, we've landed with a postcard, and we partner with Farm Aid, which gives access to a hotline with a multilingual hotline, and provides, the Farm Aid provides a lot of resources and educational materials. Oh, thank you. Look at you, just have it right there. Yeah, hiring, like I said, still very basic, but just making sure no one's being taken advantage of, and as much as we can, but that they're aware of the practices. And like I said, the farmer is answering these questions in the application. They're answering these questions in an interview at the inspection, and then the employees are also being asked these questions. So those are sort of the checks and balances on, do the practices match the standards, and do they match what we've been told in the application? Yeah, is there a clear pay system? You understand how you're getting paid. You're receiving pay stubs that clearly define how many hours, and you're aware of what class of employee you are, like in the tax system. Yeah, and if if you're a contractor, if you're staffed, and if taxes are being withheld. Housing is another. There is room for alternative sorts of housing, but the main thing that we're looking at with both farmers and with with our employee interviews is, does it match what you expected? Does it match the description you were told? Is it what you consented and agreed to at hire? And then all the other things you can see there. Are there windows? Is it a cleanable space? Do you have access to a bathroom and water? Oh. And here are more questions about the workplace. This is really getting into, you have access to basic needs, medical care, communication, and that equipment, safety equipment, tools, the things to keep everyone safe in the job are provided, and the training is provided. Okay, so those are our standards as they currently are. And then I wanted to share that right now we've been working with the University of Wisconsin, and they are doing a multi-year research project based on our standards. So they approached us a year ago, and they started by interviewing both farm owners and farm workers around our standards, read these standards, and then they asked them a series of questions, and they interviewed over 100 people, and then they found the themes from those interviews, and are providing us with proposal for new standards. Like where could we improve our standards? What more could we be looking for? What's reasonable to look for or to ask for from our farms? And then over this season, they're going to trial these proposed standards and see would they work? Would they create the positive impact hoped for, and the quality for and the well-being of the employees? But are they also like feasible and, you know, attainable for the farmer, for the farm owner. And so they've identified 5 pilot farms. They've created the drafted proposal or the drafted standards, and they'll be doing that this coming season. And then hopefully from that, or from that, we will get, you know, standards that we can move forward with, that hopefully are a little more robust. I'm going to do a little time check. Where are we at? Okay. So these are the standards that they're proposing that would be in addition to what we already have. And let's see. Yeah, that there's a written offer of the employment. There's like an employee contract. But really spells out hours, start and end dates, and any benefits. And I mean, that was a key one. That they kept finding in those studies, is people wanting more clarity on the job, when they're being asked to do things that maybe fell outside the realm of what they thought the job they were hired for was, and clear hours and clear time off. Yeah, so pay requirements: would returning employees receive a wage increase? And then the workplace, there was several. Having access to a clean bathroom, not just, you know, the woods at the end of the field, having access to soap, cool water, a shade area for breaks, defining safety, a system and policy in place for how an employee could decline work that didn't feel safe. And then maybe a professional development. And this was the biggest area, was just all the feedback they received. So the list continues for employment practices, employee handbook in the native language, again, that workday start and end times, a heat plan, an air quality plan, a clear termination policy, clearly communicated breaks. If seasonal, there is a meeting to discuss opportunity to return. If seasonal, assisting with connections for off-season employment, a clear grievance procedure, check-ins, annual review, 30-minute paid lunch break. Returning employees receive a stipend for professional development and healthcare. And personnel discuss productivity expectations and what the farm culture is. So you can see, like, this is a big increase from what our standards have started as. And that's why, again, this pilot year, to see how much of this is feasible, how much of this, like, budget and work-wise, can, especially like a young or beginning farm, can they really implement? But also looking at, you know, what are we hearing from farm workers and what's needed? Yeah, so I'm going to turn it over to Caroline. We have a team of 4 who have been out all season, doing inspections. Last inspection is happening today for this 2024 season. And so Caroline, from her experiences and having compiled the experiences, the anecdotes, from the rest of our team, is going to share what we've been learning from these employee and employer interviews.
Thanks, Trish. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, thanks for that intro. Don't even have to describe it. So I'm going to start with challenges and then move into successes. A few that were notable from across our employee and employer interviews. The first one, which Trish brought up as well, is access to healthcare. So it's pretty rare for farms to offer full healthcare to employees, and it's also very rare to find clinics across the US that provide free healthcare for farm workers. We had one I have one coworker who found one such clinic in the Missoula, Montana area. It was called the Low Clinic, and it provided fully free, complete health care for anyone receiving 51% of their income from agricultural labor. And she was super edified by this. And in the area, the employees she interviewed noted again and again, like, this is the reason I'm able to stay at this farm long term, because I have access to this clinic. So she did research into it, and it'd be awesome to lift a clinic such as this up as an example for how could we create more clinics like this one across the US for agricultural workers. But to date, it's still sort of this plea from all farms and farm workers, like, how do we provide healthcare, and how do we help agricultural workers find access to healthcare? So it's one thing you could consider in employment packages in the future, is providing some type of a stipend, maybe a monthly contribution to healthcare, along with, alternative healthcare, which is the beautiful produce and products that are coming off of your farm to your employees. The next challenge I'll note is seasonal employment. So a lot of you are based in Chicago. It's pretty common in the Midwest for farms to have seasonal employment and to be out of production for more than a couple months in the winter time. So this is just one big challenge for farms with employee retention, is that it's hard for people to find jobs in the off season. Some veggie farms do operate year round, as well as animal farms. And from several of my interviews noted that this was something that really helped provide year-round employment for folks and helped with employee retention. And then one farm I went to, they were in a very rural area and just had been really struggling with employee retention for a while. They were a veggie farm for years and decided to add production to their farm through animals as a way to provide that year-round employment for folks. And when I was there inspecting their farm, it was their 4th season having 4 year-round employees who had returned, which I thought was really impressive. And as a veggie farmer myself, got me thinking creatively about in the future how you could add production, either more winter veggie production or animal production, in order to provide year-round employment for folks. And then the last thing I'll note is just the economics of farming. We all know it. So many farmers I chatted with just say, I'm paying my employees the best I can, and it's still not enough. Like, these are highly skilled and qualified folks who could get other jobs elsewhere with higher pay, and they're often choosing to stay in agriculture because of a personal commitment to it and a desire to be in the industry. But just for many farms, there's a limit to how much they can pay employees and still make a living wage for themselves and to have enough cash flow for the business. Can go to the next slide, Trish. Thank you.
Sorry.
Now to move into the successes, and some successes that help overcome some of those challenges. So one, a freebie, is transparency and trust. So my coworker Bernadette found through their employee interviews that employees stay longer when they feel invested in the business of the farm. And often this comes from continued good communication with employees. So one example is when farms have all team meetings to go over not just how things are going on the farm in the day-to-day, but to go over financials, crop plans, and the overall state of the business. And Bernadette found that in employee interviews with folks in their 1st and 2nd years returning to the farm, they often commented on personal fulfillment. They enjoyed the job, they got along well with their team and their crew, they experienced good communication with their employer, and just noted on how flexible and easy it was to request time off, things like that. And when they chatted with employees that were in their 3rd, 4th, and 5th years on the farm, the answers focused more on the operations of the farm and how they were brought into those operations. So those employees were more satisfied when they were explained the context of decisions and even brought into meetings about strategizing how the farm would move forward. And some employees as well noted frustrations about communication. I experienced this too. It happens. Not all employers are good communicators, but in short, offering a seasoned employee context may be the difference between them completing a task joyfully or resentfully. And employees really value when their employer asks for feedback. So You can do an end of the season survey questionnaire asking for feedback. You could also implement more regular check-ins with staff through one-on-ones, maybe monthly, or all staff meetings once a week or once a month, something like that. But it's something that we all as a team continually heard from farm workers, that they really felt valued when their employer considered their feedback and welcomed them into the conversation. My coworker Melissa did inspections in the Northeast and was very encouraged by the number of crew who are invested in farming for the long term or see it as a viable and fulfilling career option. And Melissa probably, of all of us, came across the most varied benefits that farms were offering. But a big one that's also can be a freebie of sorts is training, ownership, and growth opportunities. So a common thread for her was that the strengths and potential of employees, when that is noticed by managers who provide training and further responsibilities. So whether that be making them, maybe the manager of the greenhouse or the markets or the machinery or the crew at large, that's something that can increase employee retention by giving employees more responsibility and increased pay as they gain those skills. And a list of benefits that really stood out to Melissa that she found across farms. Not everyone had all of these, but just ones that she found. I'm just going to list them off. She did come across PTO and sick pay that were often offered in second year onwards and accrued. Flexibility of schedule, which was especially appreciated by parents or by part-time workers with second jobs. She came across a couple Roth IRA contributions, educational stipends for returning crew, profit sharing bonus schemes, as well as marketeer bonus schemes, CSA trade for a local service or veggies to trade at the farmer's market, year-round employment or a predetermined short winter break, provided or subsidized accommodation, and farm lunch provided daily or weekly. And being a farm owner myself, I know that many of these are best practices and things we can aspire to include in our employment packages. And True Blue, like for me, when our first 2 years starting the farm, we didn't offer anything. We just offered like an hourly pay. And in the last couple of years, things we've added are some sick days, some PTO days, a weekly CSA share, ability to trade a CSA share for good at the market, and an end of year bonus. But I'm in it with you too. Like I'm especially getting into this work with the Real Organic Project, thinking about how I can continually to improve my employment packages. Another success is being in the Midwest with that challenge of seasonal employment is collaborating with local partnerships and community members to offer off-season employment for your farm workers. So yeah, just thinking creatively on what your partnerships are and what your resources are in the community, whether it be restaurants or businesses you sell your produce to, or customers that you interact with through your CSA or the farmers market. And if they maybe have some small businesses that might be willing to employ folks in the off season, this can be sort of a bridge to that gap. And it can be a way to help farm workers feel more connected to the community, perhaps when they have a varied work-life balance through the farming season and in the off season. And then the last thing I'll note is creating a healthy work culture. So again, across a lot of interviews I did, people often return because they just really like working there. They love their manager, they love their crew, they love the work of the farm, they love the community. And so again, thinking in your local context, how you can help create that healthy work culture and how you can help your employees create broader connections in the community to help them feel more like integrated into the space of the farm and the community of the farm. So some things I noted are creating a manageable pace for your crew, facilitating good team dynamics, and having regular staff meetings and or regular check-ins with employee. And I think that end of the season feedback survey is something folks really appreciate as well. And another thing that my farm did for the first time this season was to create an employee handbook where all of our policies were written out, expectations are set, working culture is defined, our mission statement is there, We have a safety policy and a harassment policy. So another thing that you can do to help start that season off on the right foot by having your employees be all on the same page. Go to the next slide, Trish. So just to touch a little bit on employee well-being, hopefully we can all be thinking collectively here, how can we care for our employees with the resources that we have? Okay, next slide. So a lot of these things I've touched on already, but just to sum up, a couple of more things we found. Creating that healthy work culture, I just spoke about that one. It's just something that can help employees feel connected and encouraged and happy. Creating a structure for how employees can grow in the business. And so thinking as you're scaling up your farm and thinking about retaining workers, creating a structure for yourself and making it transparent to your crew on how they can grow in the business and how they can earn higher pay based on the tier they're at and what skills are required to get there. That can be motivating for crew to return. Learning opportunities. So I find that so many folks who come to my farm and work on other farms are really there because they want to learn about agriculture. Some are interested in starting farms of their own, others just are interested in agriculture. So one-on-one, figuring out where your employees are wanting to learn and taking the time through the season to provide those learning opportunities for them. So whether it be bringing them into production meetings or giving them more of a leadership task in an area of your farm, that's motivating for folks as well. And then another one we came across several times is that employees really appreciate some ergonomic movement training. So it could be something that you bring someone in the beginning of the season to do a workshop on your farm, or maybe take employees to do a movement training somewhere. But as we all know, farming is really hard work and it's hard on your body, and folks have really appreciated when their employers offered this benefit. Benefits we talked about as well. So thinking about maybe what benefits you can add, whether they be traditional or non-traditional, and maybe a goals every year about what you can add to help the well-being of your employees. And then lastly, connection. So connection to the farm, to the customer base, to the community, to help employees feel like their lives are integrated in the community will lead to greater investment in the farm business as well. So that concludes my section. It looks like we have about 10 minutes here to discuss. So yeah, we're hoping to just hear from you what your challenges, successes, and solutions are with labor practices and retaining employees on your farm. So I'm going to throw some questions in the chat, and feel free to answer in the chat or pop on, unmute yourself. But the first one we'll go with is, what is one challenge you have to retaining employees?
I think one issue is like making sure, creating a work environment that is accommodating to everyone, in a way that resonates with them and they're able to show up, at their best.
I'd also say, from what I've heard from other people, that some of like the challenges that people have with, I think just like having people come on and work with them in general is like transportation to actual farm sites. Like people have a lot of trouble getting to, a farm site that might be really far on the south side, but of course they're really passionate about like coming to do this work. So, is it worth them every season to really make a hike? That is something that I've like heard before.
Thanks for sharing. Does anyone else want to answer in the chat or unmute? I can throw the second one in there, and feel free to come back to this if you have something else to add. But what things are working well with employment on your farm, with employee retention and cultivating well-being for your employees? Trish, feel free to pop in here as well.
Yeah, Stephanie says opportunities to engage more deeply with the community. And I also just feel like from the introductions, we could take the on your farm out, because a lot of these will parallel between industries, but we all have lessons learned on what cultivates well-being. Like, what do we need to thrive as an employee, and like, what have we seen works?
And then our last little question before we close here are if you guys have any ideas about resources and support that ROP can develop to help offer to our farms in terms of employment practices. We'd love to get your wealth of knowledge as well.
And if something sparked your interest, or if something comes up from these questions later on that you think of, you can find Caroline and I both on the realorganicproject.org website. You can reach out to us through email. We'd be happy to hear from you. Oh, yeah, that's a great one. Mabel says, seeing an example of a good farm employee handbook. And that I didn't say, but that's one of the things with the University of Wisconsin that we're hoping is that we can develop a number of different templates, employee handbook, a work contract, maybe air and heat policies, things that we can offer on our website that farmers could easily use. Yeah. Oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah, any
Yeah.
last thoughts anyone wants to share? I know we have a feedback survey to complete as well, but would love to hear any final thoughts or ideas from you all before we close.
I got some. I don't know if it's I don't. Well, I'm just going to ask. Um, there are a lot of migrant workers, um, seasonal migrant workers in my community. They work a lot of the southern Illinois, like not well, northwest Indiana and north south of Chicago. They work a lot of the fruit farms out that way, and they do a lot of they do a lot of more day work and stuff. So housing for them, because the areas are rural, is an issue. So I do see them, especially in my neighborhood. They're large families living in small spaces, but they don't seem to mind because they have the necessities that they do have. But they need space in order to be able to handle the cultural activities that they normally, have Cinco de Mayo, birthdays, weddings. They celebrate a lot because they work hard, so they play hard. Um, I get invited to a lot of stuff that I don't understand. Probably the only African American there, and probably don't eat, and I definitely don't eat the food because it's not part of my diet. But does farm owners consider that type of situation for them so that they can have cultural unity?
It's a great question. It's a great idea too, of like one of these benefits that a farmer could offer. Like, a farm often has space. Um, yeah, I don't know that like we've asked that question, but I like the idea of exploring it, of do you have access to this space? Are there ways you could utilize it for festivities? Yeah. And just realizing and thinking about our standards, how we don't have like a max occupancy, or like that piece hasn't been flushed out in our housing standard. Well, we are at time, it seems. British, I think you've put in a number of times the,
Yeah.
all sorts of great information. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for attending this session.